At 68 years old, I, Loretta, thought I understood humiliation. I was wrong. My own dining table, the one Harrison and I had bought 40 years ago, was set for 12. I sat at the far end, my chair so close to the swinging kitchen door that I flinched every time the cater waiter pushed through. It was my designated spot. Not the head of the table, that was Sabrina's, not even near my son Mitchell. I was positioned like the help. And then, I kid you not, the concierge in Hilton Head just gave us the keys to the cabana. A woman named Mrs. Pembroke laughed, her diamonds flashing under my mother's chandelier. "Oh, the Pembrokes always get the best treatment," Sabrina cooed, raising her glass. My daughter-in-law was radiant in a black dress that I knew, from an accidentally seen receipt, cost over $2,000, more than I spent on food in 6 months. The conversation swirled around me, a torrent of Ivy League acceptances, second homes, and yacht club gossip. I recognized the faces from Sabrina's country club, the Pembrokes, the Davenports, people whose last names sounded like old money and new arrogance. I nodded when they glanced my way, a polite, invisible ghost at my own feast. Sabrina's voice, sharp as broken glass, cut through the chatter. "Loretta, dear, could you—" She stopped, her eyes narrowing on me. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face. My stomach tightened. "Actually, before you get up," she said, her voice dropping into a tone of saccharine concern, "I wanted to share something with our friends." The table quieted. Every eye turned to me. "You all know my mother-in-law, Loretta, has been living with us since Harrison passed," she began, placing a perfectly manicured hand on her chest. "And we've been so patient, haven't we, Mitchell?" I looked at my son. Mitchell stared into his wine glass, swirling the dark red liquid as if it held the answers to the universe. "Yes, darling," he mumbled, not looking up. "But we feel it's time to be honest about the situation." Sabrina stood, smoothing her silk dress. She walked around the table and stopped directly behind my chair. I could smell her expensive perfume, a heavy, cloying scent. "Loretta, sweetheart, I'm saying this in front of our friends because I need them to understand what we're going through." Her voice hardened. "You have lived in this house for 3 years." She didn't say, "my house." She said, "this house." In all that time, you haven't contributed a single dollar. Not for the mortgage, not for the utilities, not even for the food you're eating right now. Her gaze traveled with theatrical slowness from my simple navy cardigan to my sensible black shoes. My cheeks burned. They were from a thrift store. "You dress—" She paused, letting the silence hang. "Well, you dress like a beggar. It's embarrassing for us. It's embarrassing for Mitchell." "Sabrina," I started, my voice a dry whisper. "Harrison's medical bills. They took everything. Our savings—" "Oh, stop it," she snapped, all pretense of concern gone. "Stop with the sob story. We are tired of hearing it." She turned back to her guests, her arms spread wide. "Our friends deserve to know the truth. They wonder why we had to cancel our yacht club membership. They ask why we can't join them in Aspen this year." She pointed a long, red-tipped finger at me. "This is why. We are supporting a grown woman who refuses to contribute. We are drowning because of her." The silence in the room was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the hum of the wine fridge in the kitchen. This was news to me. I had no idea they were struggling. Mitchell was a partner at his firm. Sabrina had her own inheritance. How could they be drowning? "Stop acting like a beggar!" Her voice was a shout now, echoing in the grand dining room. And then it happened. Her hand moved so fast I didn't even see it. The slap was a sharp, cracking sound that seemed to silence the entire world. My head snapped to the side, my cheek exploding with a white-hot, stinging pain. In 68 years, no one had ever laid a hand on me. The room erupted. It wasn't laughter, not at first. It was a series of shocked, nervous gasps, like a kettle reaching a boil. Then, someone giggled. Sabrina's sister, Valerie, seated across from me, actually clapped her hands together lightly. "Well, damn, Sabrina," she said, a strange, bright look in her eyes. "You finally did it." The nervous gasps turned into titters. Uncomfortable, horrified, but undeniably they were laughing. At me. I slowly raised a trembling hand to my burning cheek. I looked around the table. Mrs. Pembroke was staring at her plate. Mr. Davenport was clearing his throat, but others were smiling, relieved the tension was broken, eager to side with the woman in the silk dress. I looked at my son, Mitchell, my boy. He had finally looked up, his face pale. Our eyes met for one agonizing second. I saw shame. I saw weakness. Then he looked away, picked up his glass, and took a long, deep drink. He did nothing. "That felt good," Sabrina said, flexing her fingers as if her hand hurt. "I've been wanting to do that for months." More laughter. This time it was louder. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. My whole body was shaking, but a strange, cold calm was settling over me. I could run. I could lock myself in my room and sob into Harrison's pillow. That's what she wanted. That's what they all expected. Instead, I stood up straight. I met Sabrina's smug, triumphant gaze, and I smiled. "You're absolutely right, Sabrina," I said. My voice was perfectly steady. It didn't even tremble. The laughter died instantly. She blinked, her victory lap cut short. This wasn't the reaction she'd planned for. "I have been acting inappropriately," I continued, my voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. "I should dress better. I should contribute." I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of every single person who had laughed at me. The Pembrokes, the Davenports, Valerie, whose smirk had frozen. "Thank you," I said, locking eyes again with my daughter-in-law. "Thank you for opening my eyes." I turned, not in a hurry, and walked toward the kitchen. I pushed through the swinging door, my head held high, leaving a room full of stunned, confused people and the echoing silence of my dignity. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I didn't stop in the kitchen. I let the door swing shut behind me and leaned against the cool stainless steel of the refrigerator, my cheek throbbing. The caterer, a young man with kind eyes, looked at me with pity. "Ma'am, are you—" "I'm fine," I said, cutting him off. I wouldn't be pitied, not anymore. I walked through the kitchen and into the small adjoining mudroom. I heard the dining room door swing open again, the noise of the party resuming, hesitant at first, then louder. They were moving on, forgetting it. Then I heard Sabrina's voice, no longer projecting for her audience, but sharp and conspiratorial. She must have stepped into the kitchen to speak on her phone. I know, it was harsh," she was saying, her voice a low hiss. "But someone had to put her in her place. You should have seen her face, Valerie." "No, I'm talking to Bianca. Valerie just sat there." A pause. "Listen, it worked. She practically thanked me. I think I finally broke her." My hand was on the doorknob back to the kitchen, but I froze. "Because we have to," Sabrina's voice snapped. "The trust fund from my grandmother is almost gone. Mitchell's bonus was half what we expected. We can't keep this up." My blood ran cold. "We need her Social Security money at minimum. But honestly, Bianca, we need the whole house to ourselves. We can't sell it with her in it, acting like the grieving widow. It's been 3 years. Sell the house. My house. Once she's gone," Sabrina continued, her voice filled with a greedy excitement. "We can list the house, pay off the cards, and finally get that condo in the city. Mitchell is weak, he won't do it. But after tonight, she'll be looking for a nursing home by morning, I guarantee it." I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. They weren't just humiliating me, they weren't just cruel. This was a plan, a cold, calculated plan to steal my home, toss me out, and live off the proceeds. They wanted my tiny Social Security check while they plotted to sell the very roof over my head. The fire in my cheek was nothing compared to the ice in my veins. She was wrong. I wouldn't be looking for a nursing home. I had somewhere else to go. The next morning, the house was silent. Sabrina had left for what she called a victory spa day. Mitchell had slunk off to his office, barely making eye contact with me as he grabbed his briefcase. I waited until I heard her BMW roar to life and disappear down the street. Then I walked to the hall closet. Tucked in the back, inside an old shoebox, was a single heavy brass key. I went upstairs to Harrison's study. The room was at the end of the hall, and it was the one place I had refused to let Sabrina touch. She had drawn up plans to convert it into a walk-in closet, complete with an island for her handbags. "It's wasted space, Loretta," she'd argued just last month. "He's gone." "Why do you cling to this dusty old room?" I had held firm, driven by an instinct I hadn't understood until now. I put the key in the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened with a soft sigh, releasing the scent of old books, leather, and Harrison's faint, lingering pipe tobacco. Nothing had been moved. His reading glasses were still on the mahogany desk. A stack of financial journals sat unread. I walked past the desk, my heart pounding. I went to the large, worn leather armchair in the corner, the one where he used to read to me. I pushed it aside. The heavy wool rug beneath it was thick, but I knew where to look. I knelt, my old knees protesting, and pulled back the corner of the rug, exposing the dark wooden floorboards. One of them had a small, almost invisible notch at the edge. During his final weeks, when the illness had made him lucid and terrified, he had pulled me into this room. His voice was a dry rattle, but his eyes were sharp. "Lori," he'd whispered, his hand trembling as he pointed. "Under the board, I didn't tell you. I had to protect you. From them. From everyone." "Protect me from what, Harrison?" I'd asked, smoothing his hair. "Just protect you." He had grown tired then, his eyes closing. "Things I kept from you. For your own good. You're too trusting, Lori. Too good." I dismissed it as the ramblings of a dying man. After his death, the mountain of medical bills confirmed my fears. We were broke. I had believed it for 3 years. I wedged my fingernails into the notch and pulled. The floorboard came up with a soft groan. Beneath it, nestled in the dark space, was a metal fireproof box. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely lift the box. It was heavy. I set it on the desk and fumbled with the simple latch. It wasn't locked. I lifted the lid. The contents were wrapped in thick, protective plastic. I tore it open. My breath caught. It wasn't just a few bonds. It was a stack of official documents, bank statements, from banks I'd never heard of, accounts in my name, Loretta Morrison. Investment portfolios, managed by high-end firms in New York, statements showing steady, substantial growth, property deeds, 2 of them, for 2 rental buildings downtown. I stared, uncomprehending. Then I saw the final document, bound in a formal blue cover, the Harrison and Loretta Morrison Revocable Trust. I opened it. My eyes scanned the legal jargon, landing on a single impossible number on the summary page, a statement dated just 1 month before Harrison's death. Current value, $2,141,500. I sank into Harrison's leather chair. My legs gave out. $2.7 million. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, reading, rereading. The numbers blurred. The rental income alone was over $6,000 a month, automatically deposited into an account I never knew existed. Harrison. My quiet, careful Harrison. He had been investing small amounts since his 20s, reinvesting every dividend, never telling me. He had been quietly building an empire while I was clipping coupons. Tucked at the very bottom was a handwritten envelope. "My dearest Lori." I tore it open. "My dearest Lori, if you are reading this, I am gone. and you have found what I worked so hard to keep safe for you. I never told you because you are too generous. You would have given it away to the first person with a sad story. I also hid it because I knew our son, Mitchell, has always been weak. He loves you, but he is weak when it comes to money, and he is weak when it comes to that woman. I feared they would pressure you, bleed you dry, and leave you with nothing. This is yours, Lori. Yours alone. Use it to live. Use it to be free. The lawyer's name is Jeremy Foster. His card is attached. He knows everything. He's been waiting for you to call. Trust no one else, not even Mitchell. All my love, Harrison. I pressed the letter to my chest, sobbing. Not tears of grief, but tears of a profound, earth-shattering relief. He had known. He had seen what I was too blind to see. He had protected me, even from beyond the grave. The attached business card was simple, elegant. Jeremy Foster, Foster and Associates, Estate Planning and Asset Management. I reached for the old-fashioned landline on Harrison's desk, my hand steady now. I was dialing the first 3 digits of the lawyer's number when I heard it. The sound of the front door slamming shut. My blood turned to ice. It was too early. Sabrina wasn't due back for hours. I don't care what they said. Sabrina's voice, shrill with panic, echoed up the stairs. You have to go back and fix it, Mitchell. They can't just decline it. It's the joint account. I told you we were close to the limit. Mitchell's voice was frantic. My God, Sabrina, that was the mortgage card. Footsteps. They were coming up the stairs. I scrambled, shoving the documents, the letter, the deeds, all of it, back into the metal box. I slammed the lid, shoved it back into the hole, and fumbled with the floorboard. It wouldn't sit flush. What about your mother? Sabrina hissed. We'll ask her for her social security check. It's something. She's probably in her room, Mitchell said. I heard their footsteps pause at the top of the landing, right outside the study. This room, Sabrina said, her voice dripping with venom. I'm sick of this stupid room. It's probably full of old junk we could sell. Your father had that watch, didn't he? Sabrina, don't. Mom locked it. I don't care. Thump. A shoulder hitting the door. My heart stopped. Thump, thump, crack. The sound of the old wood splintering, the lock giving way. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. I was trapped. I had ducked behind the heavy mahogany desk, but there was nowhere to go. Sabrina stormed in, her face a mask of rage. Mitchell followed, his face pale and sweating. They didn't see me. This is all her fault! Sabrina shrieked, raking her eyes over the room. All this useless, dusty junk! She swept a stack of Harrison's journals off the desk. They hit the floor with a heavy thud. Sabrina, stop! This is insane! Mitchell pleaded. No, I'm tired of being poor. I'm tired of her sitting in this house, costing us money. She kicked the leather armchair, the one I hadn't had time to move back. It skidded across the floor, revealing the loose rug, revealing the floorboard I hadn't set properly. It was sticking up by half an inch. Sabrina froze. Her eyes narrowed. What is that? She moved toward it, her high heels clicking on the wood. Mitchell, move the rug. Sabrina, no. Do it! He hesitated, then pulled the rug back. The floorboard sat there, exposed. Sabrina knelt, her red nails prying at the edge. She pulled it up. She saw the box. My God, she breathed, a new greedy light in her eyes. He had a safe. The old man had a secret safe. She pulled the heavy box out and threw it on the desk. She fumbled with the latch, the same one I had opened so easily, and flipped the lid. I watched, paralyzed with horror from my hiding spot. Her face fell. The greedy light vanished, replaced by a profound, furious disappointment. What is this? She whispered, her voice trembling. Paper. It's just paper. She grabbed the stack of documents, the trust, the deeds, the bank statements. She held them up. Old bank statements, stock certificates from 20 years ago. This is worthless. Sabrina, let me look, Mitchell said, reaching for them. "No," she screamed, snatching them away. "It's nothing. It's all worthless paper. He left us. Nothing. He left her. Nothing." She was sobbing now, hysterical sobs of pure rage. "I'm sick of this room. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of her." She marched to the fireplace, the grand, imposing fireplace Harrison had loved. She grabbed the fireplace grate, threw it aside, and tossed the entire stack of documents onto the logs. "Sabrina, no!" Mitchell yelled, lunging for her. But she was too fast. She grabbed the long-handled lighter from the mantel. "This is what I think of his secrets," she shrieked. A click, a whoosh. The dry old papers, my proof, my inheritance, my entire future, exploded in a ball of orange flame. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a sob. Sabrina's head snapped toward the desk, her eyes locked with mine. For a second, she just stared, her face illuminated by the fire. Then she smiled. A slow, cruel smile as she watched the edges of the trust fund blacken and curl. "Get out, Mitchell," she said, her voice calm now, her eyes still locked on mine. "What, Sabrina, I said get out. I need to have a little talk with my mother-in-law." Mitchell looked from her to me, his face a mess of confusion and fear. He opened his mouth, then closed it. And he left. He left me alone with her. She turned to me, the fire roaring behind her. So, the little mouse was hiding. She stepped closer. "Did you think those were real? Did you think the old man left you a secret fortune?" She laughed, a short, ugly sound. "It was just paper, Loretta. Old, worthless paper. And now it's ashes." She picked up the empty metal box. "This might be worth $50 at the pawn shop, though." She tucked it under her arm. "You will say nothing about this. You will go back to your room, and you will wait for us to tell you what to do next." She walked to the door, then paused. "If you ever go in this room again," she whispered, "I will do worse than slap you. Do you understand me?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at the fireplace, at the black, swirling ashes that had been $2.7 million good, she said. She walked out, pulling the broken door shut behind her. I was alone. I had been a millionaire for less than an hour, and now I had nothing. My proof was gone. I don't know how long I sat on the floor behind that desk. An hour, 2. The room grew cold as the fire died down. The smell of smoke and ash was suffocating. They left. I heard the front door slam again. They were going out, probably to argue and figure out their next move. Finally, I pulled myself up. My knees screamed, my cheek throbbed. My heart was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I stumbled to the fireplace. It was just a pile of black, brittle flakes. I reached in, my fingers sinking into the warm ash. She was right. It was gone. Everything. The deeds, the statements, the trust. Harrison's letter. My hand brushed against something, a tiny corner of cardstock that had fallen through the grate and been protected from the worst of the flames. It was white, charred on all edges. But in the center, in elegant, embossed script, were 3 words: Foster and Associates. The business card. A tiny flickering ember of hope ignited in my chest. She hadn't destroyed everything. She hadn't destroyed the name. My grief turned to a cold, sharp rage. They didn't just insult me. They didn't just slap me. They had, in their greed and stupidity, destroyed my husband's legacy. They had danced on his grave, and they had smiled while they did it. I ran to my bedroom, grabbing my purse and my old winter coat. I didn't care what I was wearing. I found the phone book in the kitchen drawer, my hands shaking. Foster and Associates, estate planning. The address was downtown. I crept out of the house, my thrift store shoes silent on the porch. I got into my 10-year-old sedan and drove. I walked into the lobby of a skyscraper. The receptionist at Foster and Associates on the 30th floor was a kind-looking woman in her 50s. "Can I help you?" she asked, her smile polite. My name is Loretta Morrison, I said, my voice shaking. My late husband was Harrison Morrison. He had an account with you, with Mr. Foster. The woman's smile brightened. Mrs. Morrison? Oh my goodness. We've been waiting for your call for 3 years. Mr. Foster will be so thrilled. He's in a meeting, but I need to see him now, I said, leaning on the desk. It's an emergency. Of course, she said, her brow furrowing at my frantic state. Let me just see. She buzzed his office. Mr. Foster, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Harrison Morrison is here. She says it's an emergency. A moment later, a man in a sharp suit with kind eyes and graying temples burst out of an office. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Jeremy Foster. Please come in. What's wrong? I followed him into a large, beautiful office overlooking the city. Please sit, he said, gesturing to a leather chair. What's happened? They burned them, I choked out, the words tumbling over each other. My son and his wife, they found the box, the trust, the deeds, the statements. They thought it was worthless paper. They threw it all in the fireplace. It's gone. All of it. Jeremy Foster's kind face went pale. He sat down heavily behind his desk. They burned the documents, he repeated slowly. Yes, all of them. My proof. I have nothing. I was sobbing now, the full weight of the disaster crashing down on me. She thinks it was all fake, worthless paper. She doesn't know, but I have no way to prove it. Jeremy held up a hand. Loretta. May I call you Loretta? Please. Take a deep breath. He watched me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Loretta, the documents in that box, they were copies. I stopped crying. My mouth fell open. What? Originals are held with the banks, the county registrar, and with me, he said, tapping a thick, bound file on his desk that had my name on it. Harrison was a very careful man. He knew you might need access to them, but he would never, ever keep the sole copies in a box under a floorboard. He leaned forward. He also knew this day might come. He worried about Mitchell. He worried about Sabrina. So, it's still there? I whispered. The money? The money is very much there, he smiled. But Harrison set up a final fail-safe. He told me that if you ever came to me, frantic without the documents, I was to assume you were under duress, that someone might be forcing you. My heart sank again. So you can't help me? On the contrary, I can. But first, you have to prove to me that you are Loretta Morrison and that you are acting of your own free will. He and I set up a series of security protocols, questions only the real Loretta would know. He pulled out a sheet of paper. His face became formal, serious. Are you ready? I sat up, wiping my tears. I'm ready. Jeremy Foster looked down at the sheet. His demeanor was no longer that of a kind advisor. He was a gatekeeper. This is per Mr. Morrison's explicit notarized instructions, he said formally. Question 1. In 1983, you and Harrison fed a stray dog for an entire winter. What was the name you gave him? I blinked. Harrison. He'd remembered that. Barnaby, I said, my voice thick with a sudden memory. We called him Barnaby because he looked so serious, like a judge. Jeremy's face remained impassive. He made a check mark. Question 2. For your 10th anniversary, Harrison tried to cook you a lobster dinner. It was a disaster. What was the specific phrase he used when the pot boiled over? A small laugh escaped me. He shouted, "The crustaceans are rebelling!" A flicker of a smile at the corner of Jeremy's mouth. Another check mark. Question 3. Your mother-in-law, God rest her soul, made a fruitcake every Christmas that was famously inedible. What was the secret name you and Harrison had for it? The annual brick, I said instantly. We used to joke about using it as a doorstop. Jeremy put the pen down. The formal mask melted away, replaced by a wide, warm smile. Welcome, Mrs. Morrison, he said, extending his hand across the desk. "It is an absolute honor to finally meet you. Harrison said you'd know everyone. He said, she'll laugh at the lobster one." I took his hand, a fresh wave of tears, this time of pure, unadulterated relief, washing over me. "It's real. It's all real." "It's very real," he said gently. He opened the thick file on his desk. "Harrison was one of my first clients, and one of my smartest. He wanted you to have time to grieve, to settle, before this was placed in your hands. He never imagined... Well, he did imagine, I suppose. That's why he set up the protocols." He turned a page. "Now, Loretta, the number in that old statement, it's a little out of date." He slid a single sheet of paper across the desk, a current consolidated statement. "Thanks to a strong market and the reinvested rental income, your total accessible assets as of this morning are $3,120,400. $3.1 million. I stared at the number. I thought of Sabrina's triumphant, cruel face as she watched the paper burn. She had burned a copy. She had celebrated the destruction of worthless paper while the real, multi-million-dollar fortune sat safely in this office. The irony was so sharp, so perfect, I started to laugh. It was a strange, rusty sound. "Mrs. Morrison, Loretta, are you all right?" "I'm better than all right, Mr. Foster," I said, wiping my eyes. I'm wonderful." "Jeremy, please, and I'm glad. Now." He leaned forward. "Those rental properties are generating income. The portfolio is performing beautifully. Harrison's instructions were simple. Upon your contact and verification, I am to turn over all control to you. You are the sole trustee, the sole beneficiary. What would you like to do first?" I thought of my thrift store cardigan. I thought of the sting of Sabrina's hand on my cheek. I thought of her smug, victorious smile as she'd left me in the smoky room. "I'd like to transfer $100,000 to my personal checking account," I said. My voice was no longer the dry whisper of a victim. It was clear and cold. Jeremy didn't even blink. "Consider it done. It should be available within the hour." "And," I added, "I'm going to need a new credit card, one with a very high limit, immediately. I can have a corporate platinum card messengered to my office within 30 minutes, he said, already picking up his phone. "It will be tied directly to your asset account." "Perfect," I said, because I've been told I need to dress better. And I have a lot of shopping to do. Selworth. I walked out of Jeremy's office an hour later with a temporary platinum card burning a hole in my old wallet. The $100,000 was already a pending deposit in my bank app. I didn't go home. I drove my old rattling sedan straight to Nightingale's, the most expensive department store in the city, the one Sabrina always bragged about. I must have looked a sight. A 68-year-old woman in a worn-out cardigan and sensible shoes, my hair a mess, my cheek still faintly bruised. The saleswoman at the front looked me up and down with polite disdain. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting I was lost. "Yes," I said, pulling out the platinum card. "I'd like to see your head personal shopper. My name is Loretta Morrison. I have an account." The woman's eyes widened at the card. Her entire demeanor shifted. "Of course, Mrs. Morrison. Right this way. I'll get Penelope for you immediately." Penelope was a tall, impossibly chic woman in her 40s. She didn't blink at my appearance. She just smiled. "Mrs. Morrison, a pleasure. What are we looking for today?" "Everything," I said. "A wonderful answer," she replied, her smile widening. "Let's get you some coffee and we'll get started." For the next 3 hours, I was treated like royalty. Penelope brought me silks, cashmeres, and wools in jewel tones, dresses, suits, elegant trousers, and casual wear that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. "This one," she said, holding up a navy silk dress. The fabric flowed like water. "It's sophisticated but not stuffy, timeless. It's you." I looked at the price tag, $850. "I'll take it," I said. I bought the matching shoes. I bought the handbag. I bought a stunning black cocktail dress, a cream-colored cashmere suit, and a pair of pearl gray trousers that made me feel tall and powerful. I bought new lingerie, new nightgowns, new everything. When I went to the register, the total was over $9,000. I swiped the platinum card without a tremor. The transaction went through instantly. "Have everything delivered to this address," I said, giving Penelope the address of my penthouse apartment. "Ma'am," she said, confused, "this is in the city, the Grandview." "That's right," I said. "I'm in the process of moving, but please hold the navy dress and the shoes. I'll wear those out." My next stop was Mr. Cho's jewelry store, 2 doors down, the same store where Harrison had bought my engagement ring. Mr. Cho, now an elderly man, remembered me. "Mrs. Morrison, it has been too long," he beamed. "It has, Mr. Cho. I'm looking to update my collection." He understood immediately. He didn't show me flashy, gaudy pieces. He showed me classics. A pair of elegant pearl earrings, a simple, expensive gold watch, and then a necklace. "This," he said, "is special." It was a delicate gold chain, holding a single, flawless diamond pendant that sparkled like a captured star. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It's yours." My last stop was the Salon by Julian, the exclusive, overpriced place Sabrina went every week. The receptionist, a young woman with pink hair, looked startled when I walked in. "I'd like a complete makeover," I told her. "Hair, makeup, nails, everything. I believe Melanie is available?" I knew Melanie was Sabrina's personal stylist. The receptionist's eyes went wide. "Melanie is, yes, I suppose. Right this way, Mrs. Morrison." Melanie was a true artist. She looked at my graying, shapeless hair with a critical eye. "We are not going to try to make you look 20, she announced. "We are going to make you look magnificent." She cut. She colored. She added subtle silver highlights that framed my face. She waxed my eyebrows. A makeup artist sculpted my cheekbones, the very ones that had been slapped, and made my eyes pop. By 7 p.m., I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back was not the little mouse Sabrina had mocked. This woman was elegant. She was powerful. She was confident. She looked like she owned the building. I walked out of the salon, my old clothes in a shopping bag, wearing the $850 silk dress and matching heels. I got into my old sedan, the new jewelry sparkling on my neck and wrist, and drove home. I felt like a queen in a borrowed carriage, but I knew that would be changing soon too. I smuggled my new purchases into the house, hiding the bags in the back of my closet under old blankets. Sabrina and Mitchell were in the kitchen, their voices low and tense. They were arguing about money again. They didn't even notice me come in. I went to my room and locked the door. I laid the new clothes out on my bed just to look at them. The transformation was intoxicating. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the power to be seen. My phone, an old model, buzzed on the nightstand. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Valerie." I stared at the name. Sabrina's sister, the one who had clapped when I was slapped. Why would she be texting me? What my sister did was disgusting. She's a parasite and she's a fool. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. Was this a trick? "I saw you in the study. I saw the fire. She thinks she's so smart. She's not." Another text came through immediately. "Sabrina holds a small loan over my head, a mistake I made years ago. She uses it to keep me in line. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of her. She's ruining your son, and she's a disgrace to our family." I didn't reply. I just waited. "Check your mail tomorrow. A plain envelope. A gift. She's not the only one who can play this game. Use it." I was wary. This could be a trap, a way for Sabrina to humiliate me further. But the message felt real. The anger felt real. The next day, I waited by the window. The mail truck arrived at 11:30. After the mailman left, I hurried out. Tucked between the utility bills and the catalogs was a plain, white, business-sized envelope. No return address. My name, Loretta Morrison, was typed on the front. I took it to my room and locked the door. My hands trembled as I opened it. It wasn't a letter. It was a stack of photocopied documents. My breath caught. The first one was a loan agreement from Mitchell's 401k account, a personal loan for $25,000 taken out 3 months ago. The next page was a series of credit card statements. Sabrina's, Nightingale's, Saks. Over $20,000 in debt, with a bright red past due stamp on the top. And the last one, the final damning piece of paper. It was a final notice from BMW Financial Services, a repossession warning. They were 3 months behind on the payments for the shiny black BMW Sabrina drove to her spa days. The car was scheduled for repossession in less than 2 weeks. Tucked at the bottom was a small handwritten note on a slip of paper. She holds my $10,000 loan over my head, but she and Mitchell are $87,000 in the hole, not including their mortgage. She's a fraud. Burn her world to the ground. V. I sank onto the bed, the papers spread out in front of me. This wasn't just an inheritance. This wasn't just a makeover. This was ammunition. Valerie, the woman I thought was my enemy, had just handed me the gun, the bullets, and the target. She wanted to be free of her sister's control, and I wanted justice. For the next 2 weeks, I played my part perfectly. I was the meek, subdued, defeated woman. I wore my old cardigans. I spoke only when spoken to. I shuffled to the kitchen, made my simple meals, and disappeared back into my room. Sabrina and Mitchell treated me with a new, dismissive contempt. They believed they had broken me. The fire in the study, in their minds, had been the final straw. They thought I was a non-entity, a piece of old furniture they just had to figure out how to dispose of. They had no idea I was a viper, coiled in the corner, waiting. I had daily calls with Jeremy Foster. I was learning about my portfolio. I was making plans. The opportunity came on a Thursday evening. Sabrina waltzed into the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear, bubbling with an excitement I hadn't heard since her finances had collapsed. "It's going to be fabulous," she trilled, "even bigger than last time. I've invited the Holloways, the Covingtons, my entire book club, nearly 20 people." She hung up and turned to Mitchell, who was rubbing his temples at the table, a stack of bills in front of him. "Mitchell, darling, isn't it wonderful? This Saturday?" "Sabrina, we can't," he groaned, his voice muffled. We can't afford groceries, let alone another party for 20 people." "Oh, don't be silly," she scoffed. "We're not hiring caterers. I'll cook. It will be more authentic, more personal. It's important we keep up appearances, now more than ever." Her eyes slid to me, standing by the sink. A slow, calculating smile spread across her face. "And Mother Loretta will help, won't you, dear?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You can help me in the kitchen, and of course, you'll be helping serve." I met her gaze. I nodded slowly. "Of course, Sabrina. Whatever you need." "Wonderful," she clapped. "This is perfect. This party is going to be the start of everything new." Later that night, I lingered in the hall, pretending to tidy a bookshelf. Their voices carried from the living room, low and urgent. "You have to tell her," Mitchell was saying. His voice was strained. "We can't just spring it on her." "I will," Sabrina snapped. "After the party, I want this one perfect evening. I'm going to announce it to everyone. It'll be a celebration of our new, simpler life." "What's to celebrate, Sabrina? We're selling the house to pay off your debts." "We are downsizing, Mitchell," she corrected him, her voice like steel. "We're simplifying our lives, and once we explain to her that we're selling the house, she'll have to understand that she needs to find other arrangements." "Other arrangements? She has nowhere to go." She has Social Security, Sabrina said dismissively. I've already looked it up. There's a lovely senior apartment complex across town. She'll be fine. We don't have a choice, Mitchell. If we don't sell this house, we lose everything. Sell my house. My house. The house Harrison and I built. The house he left to me. They weren't just planning to force me out. They were actively planning in secret to sell my home out from under me and use my equity to pay for her shopping sprees. I crept back to my room, my mind crystal clear. She wanted a party. She wanted an announcement. Oh, I would give her one. The next morning, I was on the phone with Jeremy Foster before Sabrina was even out of bed. Jeremy, I said, my voice low and urgent. It's Loretta. We need to accelerate everything. Now. What's happened? He asked, all business. They're planning to sell the house, my house, this weekend. There was a sharp intake of breath on his end. They can't. The title is in your name, but they're desperate. They're $87,000 in debt. They'll forge my signature. They'll claim I'm incompetent. I don't care what they'll do. We have to stop them. Today. I'm on it, he said. The house is already legally yours, but we can make it untouchable. I'll file for an immediate transfer of title into the irrevocable trust. As of noon today, that house will be locked down so tight, not even the president could mortgage it without your signature. It will be legally, completely, and irrevocably yours and yours alone. Good, I said. That's phase 1. Now for phase 2. I'm listening. I need a new car today, something appropriate. I have an auto broker we use. What did you have in mind? A Mercedes, silver, a sedan, and I want to pay in cash. Have it delivered to the house this afternoon. Consider it done, Jeremy said. Phase 3? Phase 3, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face, is a party. After I hung up with Jeremy, I made another call to the finest, most exclusive furniture store in the city. Yes, I'd like to place an order for delivery tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sharp. I ordered an entire house full of furniture, a new mahogany dining table for $20, a complete living room set in soft cream-colored leather, a new entertainment center, new rugs, new lamps, new art for the walls. And you'll be removing the old furniture? The designer asked. Yes, I said. I want all of the old pieces in the living and dining rooms taken away. I believe they're spoken for. I paid for it all with my new platinum card. The total was staggering. I didn't care. That afternoon, a beautiful, brand new silver Mercedes sedan was delivered to the house. The delivery man handed me the keys. I parked it in the driveway right next to Sabrina's soon-to-be repossessed BMW. Sabrina and Mitchell were too busy arguing and planning their perfect party to even notice. I spent Friday evening playing my role. I chopped vegetables, I polished silverware, I listened to Sabrina bubble about her plans. It's going to be flawless, Loretta, she said, arranging flowers. This party, it's going to change everything for us. I'm sure it will, dear, I said, carefully polishing a wine glass. I'm sure it will. Saturday morning arrived, gray and drizzling. Sabrina was in a state of high anxiety, rushing between the kitchen and the dining room, snapping at Mitchell. At exactly 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Sabrina, her hair in a messy bun, wiped her floured hands on her apron. Get that, Mitchell. It's probably the wine delivery. It wasn't. A man in a uniform stood on the porch, clipboard in hand. Delivery for Loretta Morrison. Sabrina stormed onto the porch, pushing past me. What is this? I didn't order anything. Furniture delivery, ma'am. A full house. Sabrina's head snapped toward me. Mother Loretta, what is this? What did you buy? Just a few things, dear, I said calmly, signing the clipboard, to make the house more comfortable. What followed was the most satisfying hour of my life. A team of 6 men began emptying my living room and dining room. What are you doing? Sabrina shrieked, grabbing a mover's arm. That's my sofa. Sorry, ma'am. he said not unkindly. Our orders are to clear these 2 rooms. All items are being donated to the shelter, per the work order. Donated? And then the new furniture started coming in. An exquisite 20-foot mahogany dining table, 20 new upholstered chairs, a massive cream-colored leather sectional that filled the living room, a new Persian rug, abstract art pieces that I'd chosen, which cost more than Mitchell's car. Sabrina was pale. She was shaking. Where did you get this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. This is thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. I've been saving up, I said simply, directing the men where to place a new marble coffee table. Saving up. What? She hissed, grabbing my arm. Your Social Security? Your $300 a month. I just smiled and gently removed her hand from my arm. You should check on your roast, dear. It smells like it's burning. Just as the delivery truck was pulling away, Mitchell's car pulled into the driveway. He got out, stopped, and just stared. He stared at the brand new, gleaming silver Mercedes. He stared at the empty furniture truck. He stared through the living room window at a room he no longer recognized. He stumbled into the house, his face ashen. "Mom?" he said, his voice weak. "Mom, what is going on?" Sabrina was standing by the new dining table, her hands clenched at her sides. "She's lost her mind, Mitchell. She's bought all this, and the car. There's a new Mercedes in the driveway." I was sitting in my new cream-colored leather armchair. It was soft, comfortable. I felt like a queen on her throne. "Sit down, you two," I said, my voice calm and quiet. They looked at each other. Then, like 2 chastened children, they sank onto the new sofa. "I know," I said, "about your plan to sell the house." The color drained from both their faces. Sabrina went white. Mitchell looked like he was going to be sick. "I know you've been planning to announce it tonight at your party. I know you've been struggling with debt. I know," I said, locking eyes with Sabrina, "that you are $87,000 in the hole." Sabrina made a small, strangled sound. "And I know," I continued, "that you plan to put me in a senior housing complex so you could use the proceeds from my house to solve your financial problems." "How?" Mitchell whispered. "How did you—" "What you don't know," I said, leaning forward, enjoying the rising panic in their eyes, "is what I did yesterday. As of noon yesterday, this house was placed into an irrevocable trust in my name, as the sole trustee." I smiled. "What that means, in words you'll understand, is that this house belongs to me, completely. You cannot sell it. You cannot mortgage it. You cannot use it as collateral. You cannot so much as change a light bulb without my permission." That's impossible," Sabrina whispered. "We live here. We pay—" "You pay nothing," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "You are guests who have overstayed their welcome." I stood up slowly, smoothing the old, worn-out house dress I was wearing, the last time I would ever wear it. "I own this house. I own the Mercedes in the driveway. I own every single piece of furniture you are currently sitting on. And your guests," I said, glancing at the clock, "will be arriving in 1 hour." The doorbell rang. "Right on time," I said. "It's time for the party to begin. Go get changed, Sabrina. You look a mess." I let them sit there, in the wreckage of their plans, stewing in their stunned, terrified silence. I went upstairs to my room and locked the door. At 5:30 p.m., 1 hour before the party was set to begin, I began my own transformation. I opened my closet and pushed past the old drab cardigans. I took out the navy silk dress from Nightingale's. It slid over my skin like cool water. I put on the new lingerie, the new shoes. I sat at my old vanity and did my makeup, just as the artist at the salon had taught me. I put on the pearl earrings. I clasped the diamond pendant around my neck. I strapped the new gold watch to my wrist. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The timid gray woman was gone. In her place was a stranger, an elegant, powerful woman with silver hair, bright eyes, and a diamond at her throat. A woman who looked like she was worth $3 million. I could hear the voices downstairs. The doorbell was ringing. Guests were arriving. Perfect timing. I opened my bedroom door and walked to the top of the stairs. The sound of my new heels on the hardwood floor was a sharp, confident click-clack. The conversation in the living room below stopped mid-sentence. I descended the staircase slowly, one step at a time, my hand on the banister. I saw them all. The Holloways, the Covingtons, Mrs. Pembroke. And near the back, a small, knowing smirk on her face, stood Valerie. Sabrina was frozen by the front door. She had managed to change, but she looked frantic, her makeup hastily applied, her eyes wide with panic. Next to me, in my $850 silk dress and diamonds, she looked like the hired help. The irony was delicious. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice carrying easily through the silent room. I smiled graciously as I reached the bottom step. "I'm so glad you could all make it." Mrs. Holloway, a woman who had never given me more than a polite nod, stared, her mouth slightly open. "Loretta? My goodness, is that you?" "It is indeed," I said, moving into the room. I felt 20 pairs of eyes following me, noting the dress, the jewelry, the hair. "Mom," Mitchell started, his voice strained. He was standing by the new fireplace, drinking a whiskey far too quickly. "Maybe we should—" "Oh, don't be silly, Mitchell," I said brightly, settling into my new leather armchair. "The party is just beginning. Sabrina has worked so hard." Sabrina was trying to recover, to play the hostess, but I could see the terror in her eyes. Every time a guest complimented the new furniture, "Sabrina, your new sofa is divine," she would flinch. "Oh, thank you," I would interject smoothly. "I just had it delivered this morning. The old pieces were getting so tired, don't you think?" Dinner was announced. We moved into the dining room. The guests gasped. The new mahogany table was stunning, set with new crystal and china I'd had delivered that morning as well. I walked, without hesitation, to the head of the table, the seat Harrison used to occupy, the seat Sabrina had stolen. I sat down. Sabrina and Mitchell were left standing awkwardly at the far end near the kitchen. "Celine, dear," I called out sweetly, my voice ringing down the length of the table. "You've been in the kitchen all day. You must be exhausted. Would you mind serving the first course? You worked so hard on it." Her face went blotchy red. She had no choice. In front of her 20 friends, my daughter-in-law in her party dress had to go to the kitchen, retrieve the soup tureen, and serve her guests. She moved around the table, her hands shaking so badly the soup ladle rattled against the bowls. When she got to me, she paused. I looked up and smiled. "Thank you, dear. It smells wonderful." Her eyes were filled with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. She slopped the soup into my bowl and moved on. The conversation started, stilted at first, then lively. "Loretta, your home looks incredible," Mrs. Covington said. "You're planning renovations?" "Yes, just a few," I replied, taking a delicate sip of wine. "I'm thinking of updating the master suite and perhaps adding a conservatory off the back. It's so much more manageable, you know, when you own the house outright." I heard Sabrina's spoon clatter against her china plate. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. My outright ownership comment had landed like a bomb, and everyone was pretending not to have heard it. Finally, Valerie, from her seat halfway down the table, raised her glass. She was playing her part beautifully. "Loretta," she said, her voice clear and carrying, "forgive me for being so direct, but what on earth is going on?" The table went silent. "At Sabrina's last dinner party," Valerie continued, a look of faux confusion on her face, "you seemed, well, poor?" I finished for her, setting down my wine glass. I smiled. "Dependent? Like a burden my son and daughter-in-law were graciously tolerating? The blood drained from Sabrina's face. Yes, I said, my voice steady and calm. That's exactly how I seemed, because that's exactly how they wanted me to seem. Mother, I think you've had enough wine, Sabrina hissed, trying to stand. On the contrary, dear, I said, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I stood up. My silk dress rustled. I walked to the new sideboard where I had placed a slim, elegant leather portfolio Jeremy Foster had prepared for me. I opened it. You see, everyone, there's been a terrible misunderstanding about my financial situation. I pulled out the top sheet, a consolidated summary of my assets. The truth is, I said, I've never been financially dependent on anyone. My late husband, Harrison, was a very wise man. I held up the paper. These are my assets, totaling just over $3.1 million. A collective gasp went through the room. Mrs. Pembroke literally dropped her fork. That's not including this house, of course, which I own free and clear, I added casually. Or the 2 rental properties downtown, which generate a tidy monthly income. I walked slowly down the table, letting the guests see the official bank letterhead, the investment firm logos. But here's the interesting part, I said, returning to my seat. While I've been living quietly in my own home, trying not to be a burden, my son and daughter-in-law have been in a rather different situation. I looked directly at them. They were frozen. While they were mocking my thrift store clothes, they were accumulating, let's see. I pulled out Valerie's photocopied documents. Ah yes, $87,000 in consumer debt. Mitchell's wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Red wine spread across the new rug like blood. No one moved to clean it up. While Sabrina was complaining about supporting me, I continued, my voice like ice, she was taking out a $25,000 loan against her husband's 401k to pay for her shopping sprees. You bitch! Sabrina shrieked, jumping to her feet. And while she was driving to her spa days, I said, ignoring her, she was 3 months behind on the payments for that BMW in the driveway. It's scheduled for repossession on Tuesday, by the way. The room was in a state of shocked, horrified silence. I listened to them, I told the captivated audience. Plan to sell my house, this house, to pay their debts. I heard them discussing which lovely senior apartment they were going to dump me in. I let the words hang in the air. But here's the final perfect irony, I said, leaning forward. For the last 3 years, while they were complaining about my lack of contribution, I had authorized a monthly automatic payment of $1,000 from one of Harrison's accounts to theirs to help with household expenses. I was supporting them. Sabrina, Valerie said, her voice dripping with horror. Tell me this isn't true. Sabrina just stood there, her mouth opening and closing, making no sound. So, I said, standing up again, I've made some decisions. I looked at my son. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was just staring at the red wine stain on the floor. Effective immediately. You both have 30 days to find alternative living arrangements. Sabrina finally found her voice. It was a raw, animalistic sound, somewhere between a scream and a sob. 30 days, I repeated firmly. That should be enough time for you to find a place you can actually afford, without my subsidy. I looked around at the 20 stunned guests. I do apologize for cutting the evening short, but as you can see, my family has a lot to pack. I walked toward the door. I paused as I passed Sabrina, who was sobbing hysterically, mascara running down her face in black rivers. I leaned in close, my voice a soft whisper just for her. Oh, and Sabrina, thank you for the slap. It was exactly the wake-up call I needed. I walked out of my dining room, leaving them to the judgment and disgust of their friends. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new home. It wasn't a house. It was a penthouse apartment on the 40th floor of the Grandview, the most exclusive building in the city. The view of the skyline was breathtaking. The apartment cost $4,000 a month in rent. The interest from my portfolio covered it without me ever touching the principal. "Good morning, Mrs. Morrison." My housekeeper, Marta, a lovely woman with a warm smile, placed a cup of fresh coffee on the patio table. "Your car will be here at 10 for your yoga class." "Thank you, Marta," I smiled. After the party, the fallout had been swift. Sabrina and Mitchell were pariahs. Their friends had scattered, eager to gossip but not to help. They found a small, shabby rental across town. The BMW, as predicted, was repossessed. Sabrina, I'd heard, was forced to get a job. As a cashier, I had put the house, my house, on the market. With the new furniture and a few key updates Jeremy had arranged, it sold in 4 days for $950,000. The sale pushed my net worth to just over $4 million, and it freed me from the past. I sold my old car. I sold all the old furniture. I kept nothing. My new life was my own. I started my mornings with yoga, where I'd met a wonderful group of women, accomplished, interesting women. My closest friend, Evelyn, was a retired art historian. We went to gallery openings. We went to the symphony. I was taking Italian lessons. My trip to Tuscany was booked for the spring. I was, for the first time in my life, truly incandescently happy. I was no longer Harrison's wife or Mitchell's mother or Sabrina's burden. I was just Loretta. My phone rang, pulling me from my morning reverie. I looked at the caller ID. Jeremy Foster. "Good morning, Jeremy," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. "Good morning, Loretta. Excellent news. The Q3 reports are in and your portfolio is up another 4%. We discussed the details for a few minutes. I was learning the language of finance, dividends, reinvestments. It was fascinating. "There is one other matter," he said, his voice hesitant. "I received a call yesterday from Mitchell." I wasn't surprised. I'd been waiting for this. "He's in some legal trouble, Loretta. Serious trouble. It seems that loan he took from his 401k, it wasn't entirely legal, and their other creditors are suing. He was hoping you might be willing to help to, make it go away." I looked out at the city, at the endless bright blue sky. I thought of my son, the boy I had adored, and I thought of the man who had sat silent, sipping his wine while his wife slapped his mother. I thought of the man who had helped her burn what he believed was my only legacy. "Jeremy," I said, my voice calm and steady, "please tell Mitchell that I wish him well, but he needs to solve his own problems." I took a breath. "I've learned a very valuable lesson, Jeremy. Helping people who don't respect you doesn't teach them respect. It only enables their disrespect." "I understand completely, Loretta," he said, a note of relief in his voice. "I will convey the message." We hung up. I felt a small pang of sadness, but not a shred of guilt. My son had made his choices. He had chosen his wife. He had chosen his path. Now he had to walk it. My phone buzzed again, a text. It was from Penelope, my shopper at Nightingale's. "The new fall collection is in. I've set aside a few pieces I know you'll adore. 2 p.m.? I smiled and typed back, "Perfect. See you then." Another buzz, a text from Evelyn. "A new Italian restaurant just opened downtown. The chef is supposed to be a genius. Dinner tonight, 7:30? "I'd love to," I replied. I stood up and smoothed my silk robe. I had a yoga class, a fitting for a new cashmere coat, and dinner with a dear friend. I looked at my reflection in the glass of the balcony door. The woman looking back at me was elegant, confident, and yes, rich. But more than that, she was free. My driver was waiting downstairs. I picked up my purse, ready for the day. At 68 years old, my life was just beginning. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.